have a seat. We'll go ahead and get started.
Good morning. What if I bought a new car and nobody could fix it? I've always thought that if someone else was smart enough to invent and build a car, I was surely smart enough to learn how to fix it if it broke. I'm not so sure anymore. What if us old-timers just aren't smart enough to learn all this stuff anymore? Knowing that you really need to learn something and then realizing that you're not learning it is a pretty sickening sensation. What we probably need are some smarter people. Wonder where we could get us some. Well, colleges have smarter people. Anybody know a college has an automotive program? Some of us at Toyota began to ask this type of question almost 10 years ago. It has always been a challenge for service managers to find and hire a good staff. I've had good technicians and bad ones and mediocre ones just like all of you. But none of us has ever faced the technical barrage that has bombarded our industry in the last several years. And it's just getting started. With IM240 and multiplex and fiber optics and OBD2 and who knows what kind of new electronics. We never get a chance to catch our breath before the next wave hits. We are literally drowning in technology. Some of us saw this coming and a few years ago started to plan for it with the Toyota Technical Education Network, or T10. T10 is the most highly respected link between education and the automotive industry today. Begun in 1986 with only a handful of schools across the country, this program has matured into one that college presidents rave about and other manufacturers envy. We started this program by asking various colleges that already had the Ford or GM programs, what don't you like? And did we ever get an earful? We determined that we would not repeat the old mistakes, that we would try to find a better way to get good people. And we have. First of all, we concentrated our efforts and our money on second-year students to avoid the dropout numbers that sometimes plague a freshman class. Secondly, we recognized that our campuses were the educators, not Toyota. So instead of telling them how to run our program, we asked them what the best way would be to make it work. And believe me, it has. I have a current issue of the Automotive News with me, and in it, it announces the grand opening of Toyota's 65th T10 college program in the United States. Our T10 program is now bigger than both GM and Ford. We are the leader. As of December 31st, 1993, the 4 colleges in the Gulf States Toyota area have graduated approximately 140 T10 two-year students, and most of them are employed currently in our dealerships. That's about 1 per dealer. With a total number of about 650 technicians working in the GST dealerships at any given time, this means that roughly 20% of your employees are or will soon be T10 people. And while that's probably not an enormous amount yet, it's a very significant plan for our future. It occurs to me this morning that Toyota has never fully defined the relationship between your dealerships and the campus, simply because this has evolved as a roll-your-own situation in most cases. We have learned while we earned. And that's not a bad deal, really, but as the T10 program begins to reach maturity, I am concerned that each of us understands what our individual stake in it is going to be for the future. Fortunately for GST and our dealers, the appeal of this program has led some of us to push the envelope in a determination to provide for others what we would have given anything to have had for ourselves when we were just starting out. I suspect this one fact, more than any other thing, may be the reason that GST has the acknowledged best T10 program in the country. We are often used as the benchmark when T10 needs to be explained or displayed to industry leaders, Japanese executives, or education. Our open house held here on this campus for the national level of T10 in 1992 showcased the entire concept of this program not only to the new USA leaders of Toyota, but also the governor of Oklahoma. With most of the initial establishment of this program now behind us, the respect of our nation in front of us, and the future squarely ahead of all of us, where is T10 now going and how can it help you? With business as competitive as most of us have ever seen it, success today increasingly is a matter of total customer satisfaction in their dealings with your dealer, whatever it takes. It should not take more than 1 or 2 attendances on your part at a technical training course to quickly determine that fixing cars is no longer either simple or fun. It probably requires 5 to 10 times as much knowledge to fix today's vehicles as it did just 20 years ago. And much of this new knowledge is either electrical or analytical. We weren't very good at doing those things 20 years ago, so I think you see the dilemma of today. Everything the service department is about is based on our ability to understand the problem, find the cause, and make the repair. If we fail this, the customer's confidence in us is gone, and not much else matters. What does T10 have to do with all of this and you? To be able to learn in this high-tech world we live in, you have to be able to read and comprehend what you have read. All of us here in this room probably tend to take that for granted because we can. You'd probably not expect much success from a technician that you observed reading a Toyota wiring diagram schematic if you knew in advance that he was colorblind. He may be the best good old boy you know, but as far as electricity is concerned, he has a problem. Illiteracy is the same thing. And we're not looking for Rhodes Scholars here, you understand, but simply people to whom using and understanding the shop manuals is second nature. This business of fixing broken cars for money is rapidly in the process of coming out of the good old boy era. Apply this test. Take the technician of your choice. Assume that you are getting ready to fly somewhere soon on an airplane, and this person is working on your airplane. Would that make you nervous? Would you feel confident that the repairs were being done properly? It's very easy to demonstrate that a modern automobile is much more complicated than a small airplane. Many of the people fixing cars today were marginal as far as education is concerned when their careers started 20 years or so ago. And we should not blame them for that, as the industry standards were very different back then. Come to think of it, so were the cars. And the point, of course, is simply this. We cannot continue as an industry to hire underqualified and undereducated young men and women and expect them to somehow get smart. It's not fair to the customers who expect first-class work, nor is it fair to a technician if we suddenly throw them to the wolves. Remember that most of the older technicians working today had absolutely no idea that cars were going to get either this electronic or complicated when their careers were starting out. Most have probably, I suspect, have chosen to do something else if they had. Then what can T10 do? First of all, it can provide you with people who have shown that they have the ability to learn, the ability to read, the ability and desire to study on their own and improve their lot in life. Just offhand, how many of your present technicians go home at night and study? If you cannot successfully find and staff your store with at least some people like this, then your career and your future success are in jeopardy. I recently introduced our new Toyota Diagnostic Scan tool to over 180 Toyota technicians. The pace of the technical training was intensive. Your troops came home exhausted and often overwhelmed. Their capacity to learn high technology was being tested. And you will soon learn how well they did by the number of Toyotas they do or don't fix. T10 people have been taught how to learn, and that may be the most important secret of the entire program. Someone once said, I have a dream. Well, I too have a dream. That someday soon before I leave the classroom behind, I will walk into a room that is filled only with Toyota T10 graduates already and able to learn. And of course, what a joy for me that day will be. It's going to happen right here on this campus. In the meantime, what a pleasure it is for all of us in the Technical Center in Houston when your present T10 graduates come to our advanced courses. They stand out in class and they shine, and we can see the difference. Now that our T10 program is reaching maturity, we are continuing to refine it and improve it. One concern voiced by the respective colleges is in the T10 co-op or internship, the stage of learning where the student is temporarily in your care. Good training doesn't just happen overnight. It takes time. The T10 campus that you deal with has a tremendous desire to look good to Toyota, and they try to send only their best product to us. We deeply appreciate that, and it pays off for your master technician, who is sometimes surprised at what these students already know, even on their first co-op. When the co-op student is in your store, you are his substitute teachers. What do we do with him or her? First of all, these people are not car jockeys. They are college students learning auto mechanics, and they should be under the watchful eye of an experienced technician who makes sure that they are doing it right. They are not intended to be cheap help for the summer, but the future of Toyota. One of the bigger problems that we have experienced occasionally is where a change in service managers takes place, where a T10 co-op is already underway. The new manager probably has no knowledge of T10 or what it is or how it works, and why is this semi-skilled person even here? And of course, this is where your DSM's guidance can save the day. We're finding a difference in attitude exists from one service manager to another about T10 tests with other things. So this is a major subject for today. What are we supposed to do with a co-op? Another subject for today is recruitment. Here a great change is taking place. As this program began 8-some years ago, we had a surplus of automotive students at every campus that we tied in with, looking probably for a job at graduation. If the campus was located near a large city, there were usually enough Toyota dealers and enough turnover in those dealers that it was not a real problem to find a place to do your co-op or get employment. After all, where do you get to try out a new hire before you decide whether or not they're a keeper? However, we are now beginning to look at near saturation of some markets with T10 grads who are young enough to stay in the labor pool for quite a number of years. Some dealers are starting to say enough just as the program truly begins to become successful, while other dealers, quite often farther away, have never even participated in the program due to the difficulty in attracting sharp big city people to move to their smaller, more rural town. Enter what is called target recruiting. This allows any dealer to participate in T10 and with the program of any T10 campus. No state or district has a lock on the program of any particular campus. They are open to all. How does this work? Well, again, that's another topic for today. Principally, it requires that the dealer service manager scout around town and find out what high school automotive program in your community has a good reputation. Many school districts are shutting down automotive programs for lack of funds or more likely lack of a qualified instructor. So this search may take some time. If a local school has a good reputation and a good instructor, arrange to take him to lunch on your next DSM dealer contact. provide him or her with T10 literature and explain the program and the scholarship opportunities that T10 affords. The instructor will begin to think about who he has that may or may not be interested, and eventually pass some information along. An interview can usually be arranged with the service manager of the dealership, the auto shop instructor involved, and the student and parents to further explain the Toyota T10 program and what the student might expect. Typically, these students do not come from wealthy families, and finances are going to be the problem. Some prior discussion of this with your dealer is usually the key. Know ahead of time what your store can or cannot do to help. Preparation ahead of time by establishing a rapport with your T10 instructor or college automotive administrator will also help, as they'll often try to be there the first time or two to help you walk through the interview. Remember, this is their area of expertise. Utilize them as a resource. Recruitment of talent is going to have to be a mutual endeavor between schools and Toyota. These kids don't grow on trees. I recently found out that Ford is doing this at the 8th grade level for their program. And some of these kids, aren't going to make the grade either. They may have ambitions, but they may not have what we need. Remember, too, that this is your dealer's money that we're going to spend, and it's his choice. So far, the rumors of a signing bonus are just that. And if some of this sounds a little bit vague, that's certainly because it is. Each of your dealers is an independent businessman and free to establish his own arrangements. Some of the ones we have heard of so far are absolutely outstanding. The key, again, is getting your dealer principal involved. The major change that this concept provides is that all of you are involved in T10, even if you've never been. Any Toyota dealer in any community can recruit a talented local young person, employ them at minimum wage for a trial period, determine if they have the potential for our career field and T10, and then send them off to this school, sponsor their co-op, and have a very qualified apprentice-level technician at the end of 2 years who has made money for your store while co-oping. What a deal. And we want to cover more about this program today. Last this morning, let's realize what the T10 program really is. It's an investment in our future. If technicians cannot fix cars, our life is going to be hell. Arbitrations, lemon laws, angry customers and lawsuits, let alone your boss, are all going to gang up on you and Toyota. GST cannot possibly employ enough field technical engineers to be everywhere that a car has a problem. We are going to have to continue to expect talented and trained people are available at each store, and that they will understand the recommended procedures received from our hotline when they call the technical center for help, and that they will follow them. One last thought. America is busy retraining Americans to stay productive in a fast-changing world. T10 is a very big part of that endeavor. As with almost any kind of change, you're going to find some resistance and some opposition to T10. Old-timers see it as a threat to their future earnings or job security. Some technicians have the attitude that no one helped them learn all they know, and damn if they're going to help anybody else. Some just flat don't want to be bothered. T10 is not going to work in every case due to attitudes and prejudices of one kind or another. Use T10 as a management tool, just as you do with other things every day. Dealers with a good, healthy attitude about the future are embracing T10 and just beginning to realize the good things that it can bring. As always, some will wind up on the outside looking in. My objective is to help you to find good technicians. My payoff will be to have sharp, trainable, eager people attending Gulf States Toyota technical training courses. I'll see you there. Oh, by the way, Lexus dealers, Honda dealers, Nissan dealers, Chrysler dealers, and aftermarket independent people all see T10 as their hope of tomorrow. They let us spend the money and take the time to train these workers in the very latest technology. and then watch us hire them as entry-level, low-paid labor right for the picking. Our competitors are smacking their lips, waiting to harvest our crop. They love them. We brought here together today a unique group of individuals who have one common goal: to find, to train, and to employ the finest automotive technicians in the world. I thank you for your attendance and your participation. I hope each of you will contribute to this day from your wealth of experience so that we may continue to improve our T10 program. I'd like to show you a short video.
As automotive technology becomes increasingly complex, consumer demand for qualified auto repair will increase dramatically. The day of the mechanic is gone. The era of the technician has arrived.
Our cars are simply too complicated to have someone accidentally learn how to work on them.
The day of being able to hire a mechanic off the street with a bag full of tools that claims he knows how to work on cars is over.
I think the opportunities are absolutely unlimited for these students.
I like the experience that it gives me.
The ability of a food technician to properly diagnose and repair a customer's car is critical to customer satisfaction. Customers today are more informed, more discriminating, and more demanding. Toyota's goal of total customer satisfaction can only be realized by having the best people attending to the customer's needs. Unfortunately, the demand for highly trained, skilled, and knowledgeable technicians is far greater than the supply. Rising to meet this demand, Toyota has created the T10 program. The Toyota Technical Education Network, or T10, is a progressive industry education partnership that has broken new ground in automotive technology education. It is designed to assist the best schools and instructors in training the brightest students to become entry-level technicians for Toyota.
Modern technology is so demanding that it requires a good education, and that is probably more than just the local high school auto shop program can afford.
T10 provides me with a ready source of technicians, properly trained, and as I said before, analytically inclined.
The T10 program provides the students with the ability to learn quickly the newest technology.
The program combines theory and practical application with a Toyota dealership intern program. T10 benefits students, schools, dealerships, and their communities, and most important, Toyota's customers.
It's current and it's up to date. The students work on the actual Toyota vehicle for all the hands-on experiences. They go to the dealership, a sponsoring dealership, and they apply the skills that they learned in the technical training at the actual dealership. The dealerships work well with the school. It's an excellent marriage.
The benefits to Massac Bay Community College and working with Toyota is clearly that we are a program, a school on the cutting edge, providing technology at its highest quality.
It also gives us a direct conduit to manufacturer specifications and updates and technical service bulletins. And as the car becomes more complex, that information becomes more and more valuable.
It allows us to have very highly trained service professionals, which means we can better take care of our customers.
And it certainly, to my knowledge, is the highest level of automotive training that exists in America.
I came out of another career. I'm 32 years old. I was 31 when I started the program, and it was a big step for me. And this is giving me an opportunity to make out of my life what I want to make out of my life.
The T10 program debuted in February of 1986, with 5 schools participating, and has grown steadily ever since. T10 has allowed Toyota to establish a network of post-secondary training facilities throughout the nation, capable of providing the level of training necessary to accommodate dealership demands for entry-level technicians in the coming decade. The T10 program provides a method that enables college instructors to learn Toyota technology from Toyota training instructors, who then impart this technology to students through the use of the most comprehensive, current, and advanced curriculum in the industry. This method also includes regularly scheduled update training as new technology is introduced.
The level of training that Toyota has provided for me has expanded my knowledge base for automotive technology beyond my wildest expectations.
Personally, I like working the Toyota T10 program because of the excitement and being able to keep up with the new technologies.
The T10 co-op program enables students to work side by side with experienced technicians. This provides a learning environment conducive to professionalism and integrity, leading to reduced comebacks and ultimately increased customer satisfaction. T10 students are not limited to being technicians. They can fit into any dealership area, such as parts and service, and the student's career does not have to end at the dealership.
We don't limit our interns to just apprenticeship in the service department repairing automobiles. We have people that are service writers, we have people that are in the parts department, and we allow them to learn really the whole back end of the operation. It works out very well.
The placement rate for the Toyota program has been absolutely outstanding.
T10 prepares a school to teach Toyota-specific classes. T10 programs are connected with vocational and community colleges, and each program is unique and flexible. Toyota strives to accommodate the specific needs of each institution and its community.
In the education business, you ought not to operate in a vacuum. Our fundamental philosophy here is to blend the theoretical knowledge which we impart by way of our faculty with the practical knowledge that we know is so essential when you go out into the job market.
A skilled technician in today's workplace must have a good base in math and science. At OSU Okmulgee, we try to ensure that all T10 graduates have a math curriculum designed to meet the specific needs of their technical area.
Today's technicians must be skilled in advanced areas such as math and electronics, and have the ability to diagnose complex problems. In addition to their automotive training, the T10 program requires students to pursue a course of general studies, which includes English, math, and science courses. In this way, Toyota is assured of having technicians who are not only experts in automotive technology, but are also well-rounded academically.
Our relationship with Toyota is really extraordinary. It's been professional all the way from the beginning. It's been one of mutual benefit. I happen to be a biologist by profession, and I choose to use the term symbiosis, where two companies work together to the mutual advantage of both entities.
T10 is an ambitious project, providing a strong foundation for future growth. With quality schools, the best instructors, and the brightest students, T10 has become a crucial element in assuring that Toyota and its dealers continue to provide the highest level of customer satisfaction well into the next century.
I love cars, I love working on them, and that's basically what I dream.
This is what this industry has needed for the last 50 years. Fantastic.
I suspect you saw a lot of familiar faces in there. That may give you some idea of where Toyota places this campus in their scheme of things. They shot a lot of the video in Gulf States area. How that guy from Boston got in there, I don't know. It's good to be here with you this morning. And I'd like to make certain that all of you in the room are aware of the fact that we are making history here together today. Over the last several years, as this T10 program has blossomed and grown and become probably far more successful than many of us ever even dreamed when it started. One of the concerns that we have asked ourselves about is, are we steering this boat in the right direction? Are we staying closely attuned to the needs of the dealers who, after all, have to employ the product that we're trying to create here? And we're doing this one-on-one as Fred makes his appointed rounds and his counterparts in the other areas of GSD. And yet we've never really taken the time to get everybody together in one room at the same time, the people that create the product and the people that need it, and make sure that this ship is sailing in the right direction. Let me tell you that our ship is sailing very well indeed. But you always have to check the compass occasionally and make sure that you're on the right course. And we contacted the national level of T10 in California, Torrance, and said, what's your feelings about this? How do you conduct a service manager workshop for T10? They said, beats us, nobody's done it. When you guys down at Gulf States get it figured out, well, teach us how. So last Wednesday, we did the first one of these in history in San Antonio. This is the second one. And we chose the two most outstanding school programs in our 5-state area, and probably the two biggest and most outstanding T10 programs in the entire United States with which to begin this concept. And from time to time in the years ahead, as the need dictates, I'm sure we will continue to get together like this and make sure that we agree that we are on course, that this boat is sailing in the right direction, and that what we are trying to do with this program continues to meet your needs. In this room are representatives of the retail stores in Oklahoma and Texas. In this room are representatives of the education industry. In this room are representatives of the wholesale automotive distribution industry. And all together, we all have the same common goal. That is to find and offer an education to young men and women who have the ability and the willingness to enter into a profession like ours, and give them that opportunity, knowing that in many instances they're out there, but they don't have the means to do it themselves. I don't think that this program would be where it is today if it wasn't for people like Fred Archambault and a couple of his contemporaries around the country that looked at it in the early days and said, you know, where was this when I needed it? And immediately embraced it and made it happen. And a great deal of the success of this program on this campus has been the relationship that has been ongoing between Fred and the staff of OSU. And just the very fact that your presence in this room here today is a first, and that we are establishing a precedent here, I think deserves a round of applause for Mr. Archambault's efforts. And I assure you that this will not be the last time that we do this. One of the reasons that we're televising these programs is exactly the video that you just saw. And that video was put together out of bits and pieces from a number of different schools and a number of different occasions around the nation over a period of time. The interview with Don Cole and myself was done in the Tech Center in Houston. Much of the footage you saw was shot right here on this campus. Many of you recognize many of the buildings and even some of the students and faculty that was involved. And we have no idea just how much footage out of today's meeting may become another video for some purpose of the T10 program in the future. So thank all of you for being television stars. We're proud of you. As we put this day together, we tried to figure out, you know, if we could get us all together in the same room at the same time, how could we possibly make the most advantage of our day? And every one of you has a very busy life, a very busy business, a very busy career. We're very near the end of the school year. To ask an educator to come off campus for a day at the end of the school term is really kind of presumptive, and yet we did, because in many instances summer co-op programs are just beginning, and we felt that this was a very timely place to be talking about recruitment and retention and co-op. And those would be the three main things that we have in mind to talk with you here about today. You've already noticed that there have been a few changes in the agenda that's in front of you since it was printed up about 10 days ago. In fact, I think we were still fine-tuning this last night during the little dinner that we had together, some of us. And it was good to get together with you. I think most of you know I've been up here all week with the automatic transmission training courses, training some of your dealer technicians. What you may not know is that in the last couple of years, my particular ship has sailed off on a new tack. And where I spent many, many years in the classroom training your technicians, I have slowly but surely begun to ease myself out of that capacity and into more of a management or supervisory role, We've got a couple of excellent instructors at Gulf States Toyota now, and my days in the classroom are much less than they once were, and that's entirely by plan. Somebody needs to have the time and take the effort to make sure that these T10 programs continue to be this successful. And of course, that's also a very keen interest of mine, so that we will have a lot more involvement in T10 than we've had the opportunity to in the past, to make sure that you get what you need from these programs, and to make sure, more importantly, that the campuses get what they need to continue to make the program successful. As we said in the opening remarks, this program is now the largest in the nation, with 65 college campuses involved. It operates nationally on a $40 million a year budget. We ain't small potatoes. This has become big business. This business of trying to find good people and teach them what they need to know and provide you with the kind of staff that it takes to deal with today's cars. It's quite a challenge, but I think that we've put the vehicle in place with which to meet those needs. The main concern that we will have here today is that you're familiar with the program, that you know what it is about, how it works, and that you take out of here with you all of the knowledge that we have about what the program is capable of doing and how it's being improved and fine-tuned constantly as we go along together. So with all of those thoughts in mind, let me thank all of you again for your participation in advance, and we want this to be a two-way street today. Last thing in the world in my mind is that Terry gets up here and talks to you all day long. We've brought together a good collection of various speakers today, some live and some on TV. And we're going to share with you some very interesting things that I think will be helpful to you, no matter where your particular store lies in the T10 program. Many of you are very experienced in T10 and have been a player since the beginning. Many of you have co-opted repeatedly over the years, and there's not much mystery about it in your mind. Others in the room are brand new to the T10 idea, and they have never participated in it. Or if they have, maybe only with a partial understanding of what it really is all about. So today is our opportunity together, you and I, to make sure that any questions in your mind are answered, and that you have a good idea when you leave here this afternoon of everything that you need to know about T10 and how to use it to your advantage in the future. I think you probably realized when you walked in the door this morning and saw the wealth of paperwork stacked in front of your chair that this just wasn't an open house tour. And I'm really not quite certain what Fred said that got you here, but thank goodness for Fred, it worked. And our concept of an open house has been done here on this campus a number of times in the past. Even so, I'm aware that several of you here have not had a chance to tour the facilities. If this is your first time on campus, I suspect you're a little overwhelmed at the enormity of it all. Who would have thought this was all hiding out in the Oklahoma foothills somewhere? First time I came out here and saw this thing, it just blew me away. Had no idea down through the many years that I've been driving Highway 75 between Tulsa and Houston that anything like this was hiding out here. And I think everybody feels the same way. It absolutely blew away Toyota's new national president when he was here a couple of years ago. In fact, we had two Toyotas sitting on the top of that big water tower. Probably didn't hurt. At least till we tried to get them down and bent them anyway. But in the process of seeing the facilities here, we will have an opportunity at the end of the afternoon, and we're not going to keep you here all day long, but at the end of the early afternoon session, we will have an opportunity to take those of you that have not seen the facilities and the automotive program here before on a short open house tour and show you what they have available, and I think you'll be suitably impressed. Particularly when you see the incredible amount of stuff that says Toyota on it. And through the years, the Toyota donations to this program, this campus, have become astronomical, both in dollar value and in sheer volume. The number of automobiles alone that has been donated to this school is at a point where they can't maintain them. And we are at a point where we needed to be, where we are beginning to redonate a lot of the older technology. And you understand that in our world, that's stuff that's 3 years old. We are beginning to redonate that down to the secondary level, where to them that's still spaceship stuff. I think it's obvious that this industry has come to the point where we can't teach kids how to work on small block Chevys anymore. It's got to be the fuel-injected, overhead cam, 16-valve, high-performance, giddy-up-go type of stuff that you and I know is what comes through our doors today. And we have made sure that these campuses across the country have the latest cars, the latest tools, the latest shop manuals, and the latest training. And with people like Jerry Biddle, who is our T10 instructor here on campus, as well as all of the rest of the automotive staff who have snuck into every one of our classes they could down through the years, there's a wealth of Toyota knowledge available on this campus for your students when they come here. And it's not just a matter of learning Ford, Chevy, and Plymouth anymore. The import car business, as we all know, is gigantic, and it has afforded all of us an incredible living for quite some years. And education has to understand that and embrace it as well. They're ignoring too much of a segment of the market if they don't. It's just amazing the reputation that T10 has gained in a few short years in the educational community. And I'm constantly getting phone calls from schools around the country wanting to know how they can get a piece of the action. As with all of the other manufacturers' programs, there is a budget, there is a limit to what we can do. And as we begin to look more closely at the secondary school programs, what we consider to be feeder schools for the T10 program, there's definitely going to be budget limitations and manpower limitations to just how involved we can get, but we're going to try. It is going to take your help. So this morning I'd like to talk first a little bit, if I may, about what is a feeder school, how's this target recruiting thing supposed to work anyway, and some of you are old hands at it. And then something else that I think maybe you'd like to know about. It's a new thing to me, at least it was in February, but once I became aware of it, I began to pay attention to it, and the more I began to hear about it, the more excited I began to get. And I'd like to share just a little bit of that information with you as well. Things are going on in this country of ours. There is a groundswell of change that you may know about or you may not. It depends upon how it affects your life. One thing I'm sure all of you know about is that every time you turn around, somebody is bad-mouthing education. Why Johnny can't read, why Susie can't do math, why they can't get a job. Well, that's easy. Schools ain't no good, and neither are the teachers. And that's not true, and you know that, and so do I. I suspect that the problem is as much a fault of the parents and the family life that many students have to survive as it ever would be the educational system. Or maybe it's everybody's fault. There's probably enough blame to go around. Whatever the reasons for it, and if they were simple, they could be easily fixed. I think that one of the things that disturbs me the most is when I'm on these campuses, as I often am these days, and I am told that the largest growth industry on the college campus is remedial education. That tells me something is wrong. And we need to find out what it is, and we need to fix it. Why should we have to spend part of someone's college education teaching them to read when they had 12 years in which to accomplish this? Why should we have to spend part of their college money or time learning to do things that they should have learned many years prior to that? With 7 children of my own successfully raised and 17 grandkids so far, most of whom are in somebody's school system somewhere, I hear about this constantly. I'm besieged about poor grades or bad teachers or school systems that don't have the money to do what we want them to do. And I think most of you hear these stories as well. So it probably set me up to be a very interested listener in February when Toyota and the T10 program hosted an institute in the Houston area for all of the T10 college administrators and many of the instructors from the central United States region. T10 is broken up into 3 major areas geographically: the eastern, the western, and the central regions. And of course, this is the premier campus in the central region. So with about 20 some odd colleges represented in this seminar in Houston for a whole week, I had an opportunity to sneak out there for a couple of different days and listen to some of the programs. I wish I could have been there for the entire week. What I did get to see and hear was absolutely outstanding. One particular gentleman I'll never forget, because they brought in a high school principal from Maryland, who is the principal of one of the original school systems, one of the first school districts in the United States to try to do something that probably would be of great interest to people like you and me. And it is a program that apparently is gaining a tremendous amount of interest across the country. Some federal funding, some of the regulations, laws, or acts of our government are pushing it. Local government and state government, local political bodies are picking up on it. I had not really heard much about it until this gentleman got up in February in this meeting in Houston and gave a presentation on it, but it's referred to as tech prep. And I don't propose to be an expert here this morning on tech prep, but I'd like to share with you, if I may, just a little bit about what I learned about it, and develop an interest and awareness on your part about what it means, and then in the future, as you hear about it, on either the news or in your local community, as school systems begin to look at what it means and whether they're going to do it and how they're going to do it, I think that it may at long last be the beginnings of something that could be exactly what we've been needing for a long time. I know it certainly rang some bells in my heart when I considered what it could have done for my own children had it existed a few years ago, instead of being something that we're just now beginning to do. One of the things that I am aware of, and this school superintendent certainly made it obvious if I wasn't, is that the educational system that we afford today in elementary schools and secondary schools is not end goal oriented. And I can't begin to tell you how many times my kids came home through the years after a day in a particular class in high school and said, beats the heck out of me why I need to know this. This is the dumbest teacher I ever got. She can't tell me why I need to know how to do this algebra. She can't tell me why I have to know geometry. I'll never need this. I'm going to do so-and-so, and you don't need to know that. How come I got to do this to graduate? If there's one thing I know of that much education is guilty of, it is not instilling in our children, why are you going to school? What's the end objective of all of this supposed to be? Where is all this headed? You're going to have a job someday, and you don't know what all you're going to need to know to get that job and make a living, but you better learn it now while it's easy and while you can and while Dad and Mama are paying for it. We don't, as parents, we don't as school systems, apparently do a very good job of this. And I'm just as guilty as everybody else. I remember a few years ago, one of my sons got out of school and began the process of laying around the house for the summer, sleeping all day and watching video movies all night long. And after several weeks of this, my wife said something, and I got in there one day when I had an opportunity and caught him awake, and I said, James, strikes me you're out of school now. Have you looked for a job? Are you at all interested in possibly earning your own keep for a change instead of sponging off of Mom and Dad like you've done so well for 18 years? Well, no, not really. Well, James, what do you plan to do with your life? I don't know. What have you, been planning on doing to earn your living all through these years you've gone to school? I don't know. Do you want to go to college? Nah. Well, Jim, remember what happened when your older brother pulled this stunt a few years ago? You remember when he flunked out of the first semester of college and came home and laid around the house for 6 weeks? You remember what your mother did, Jim? Your mother took Brian by the ear and hauled him down to the mall, and she walked him up to the mall, and she says, door number 1, Army recruiter. Door number 2, Navy recruiter. Door number 3, Marine recruiter. Pick your door. And Brian shipped out for 3 years at sea. Mama's blood pressure's rising, James. What are you going to do? You want that same thing to happen to you? Nah. Well, then what are you going to do? Well, maybe I'll go up to Arkansas and work with Brother Kevin. He builds houses. That might be fun. Well, Jim, you don't have a penny to your name, and you wrecked your car. How are you going to get there? Well, I'll probably hitchhike. Now, you know and I know I wasn't going to let my son hitchhike to Arkansas. But I went ahead and fostered his fantasy for just a few minutes, and I said, well, Jim, every time we've ever gone to Arkansas to visit your grandmother, you slept in the back seat all the way. How do you get to Arkansas from Houston, Texas? And I went and got a Rand McNally road atlas out and said, read the map and show me how you get to Arkansas. Now, for years I've said, and probably facetiously, that high school graduate should be able to at least demonstrate 3 practical talents after 12 years of education. One of them would be the ability to balance their own checkbook. Another one would be the ability to count cash back out of a cash drawer without an adding machine figuring the change for you correctly. And the third one would be the practical ability to read a roadmap so you could get where you wanted to go. How many high school graduates do you know that can do any one of those, let alone all 3? I'm sure some do. But I gave my son this road atlas and then got called away for a few minutes, telephone rang or something, and when I came back, I expected that he would be trying to figure out how he was going to get to Arkansas. And imagine my amazement when he was looking at a map of Florida. And I said, Jim, that's a map of Florida. Why are you looking at that? Well, I thought I might want to go to Disneyland. I said, Jim, you live in Disneyland. Now, if this was just one kid and the only time this ever happened, it'd be a funny story, wouldn't it? But it's so representative of the world that we live in today. Some kids know from a very early age what they want to do, and their life is a straight arrow right to that target. I don't know why, but ever since I've been 16 years old, I've always wanted to mess with cars. That's all I ever wanted to do. And except for a few years when Uncle Sam collared me and let me work on his airplanes instead, that's pretty much what I've done. Well, except for the 6 months that I tried to sell life insurance. I think everybody ought to sell life insurance at least once in their life. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. Because all I ever had until that time was a job. And I turned wrenches, and I fixed cars, and I got in the driveway, and I waited on customers, and I became a warranty person, and I became a service advisor. And one day I was just tired of it, and the right guy come along and convinced me that, hey, you talk pretty good, why don't you sell life insurance? You can make a lot of money. And at that point in time, the job just didn't mean that much, so I said, well, why not? Let's try it. I've never been so miserable in my life. And let me say to you that I have a tremendous regard for those who can sell you something that you'll never live long enough to own. Selling an intangible is a very tough challenge. What it did for me was at some point I realized that while I was supposed to be selling this person something that his wife would enjoy, what I was really doing was looking out the window at every red Corvette that went by. I was listening to the dual exhausts of every small block that rumbled down the street. I was wishing I was out there messing with cars, and I could hardly wait to get back. And I finally went to my wife and I said, this just isn't working. I don't like what I'm doing. I might be able to stick it out and make a living, but that's not the same thing. I want to go back to the automobile business where I'm happy, where I belong, where I think I know what I'm doing, but I want to do it differently this time. It ain't a job anymore. Now it's a career. I want to see how good I really am, how far I can go. What can I do? I think in every one of us at some point in life, a little switch in the back of your head goes click. And all of a sudden, who you are and what you do just isn't a series of jobs that make you a paycheck. Suddenly you realize this is a career. This is what I do. This is who I am. And it's unfortunate that many of us are mature, married adults with family responsibilities before that little switch sometimes goes click. Now, the concept of this idea, and I'm not sure that it's actually a new idea, it's one of those things that makes a doggone much sense that you have to ask yourself, well, how come it took them so long to think of this? This thing we call tech prep is actually a making children, literally children, aware that someday there is a reason for all of this education, that there is an end objective in sight, that you're going to school to learn things that someday will be necessary for a purpose, that you're not just putting in hours because the law says you have to, or mom and daddy say you do, that there is a real good reason for this, that as early as the 3rd grade they will begin looking at career fields, trying to get an interest developed in something. It's not important what. Every kid on the planet today wants to be an astronaut, or a motorcycle racer, or a fireman, or a nurse, or whatever turns them on. And that's wonderful, because we need to make certain that at an early age they are thinking exactly along those lines. And yeah, they're going to change their mind a dozen times, and who cares? In the tech prep concept, as early as the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades, if Johnny says, I want to be a fireman, then the school system gets a local fireman to come to the school tell Johnny in his class what the fireman's life is all about. And if Sally says, I think I'd like to be a nurse, my grandma was, then we go get somebody from the nursing profession, and we have a career day for that class. And that we don't wait until graduation looms in sight for high school students before we begin to talk to them about what do you want to be, what do you want to do, where do you want to go. That we started probably earlier than we ever thought of in the past. And that we don't just do it once, but that we make it a continuous part of their curriculum. Now, this high school superintendent from this very rural school system about 60 miles south of Baltimore started such a concept in their community and their school system 8 years ago, and not without a great deal of controversy. If there's one thing we all know, it's that people change very slowly. Technology doesn't. It changes so fast we can barely keep up with it. But people and their habits and their ideas evolve. They change much more slowly than perhaps some of us would like. And it was a tough sell to get this school system to go into an area that really was uncharted. But they made the change, and 8 years later, looking back, it's the best thing they ever did. First of all, they were burdened with a rural school system where there was not a great deal of industry. The employment available for their graduate students was not good. Pay and wage scales were very low in that area, not much better than minimum wage, with one major exception. And that is the Pawtuxet Naval Station, not too far away, which employs over 30,000 people, many of them civilians. The starting wages for two-year college degree students were quite high, but they had to have a specific set of qualifications to get them. And as a result, why the school system realized that, we could get these students, we could get these graduates jobs if we gave them the right training. The only other choice in that area was agriculture, and of course some of the students' parents had farms, and they were destined to inherit that farm and that life. So they adopted this concept that we are going to tie industry and education together in an end result and see what happens. And they began to pioneer in this tech prep concept that was beginning way back then. The results in that particular school system have been spectacular. Contrary, exactly opposite to what many people predicted, the students suddenly took fire. Their dropout rates went way down. Their grade averages went way up. Their students suddenly had an objective. They suddenly realized why they were going to school. And 19-year-olds were coming out of this high school system into a 1.5 year college prep program for the jobs available at that military installation. And at 21 years of age, we're starting at $31,000 a year. That's pretty decent for a kid. And all of a sudden, this whole campus just caught fire. The concept is that in that state today, in the state of Maryland, as a high school freshman, as you enter into a 4-year high school program, you have to declare which of only 2 possible courses your education is going to take. Now, each of them are broad-based, but nevertheless, each of them demands an end objective. There is no more general education in that school system. And as these youngsters begin college or begin the high school, they look forward and anticipate that they are going to go to college. The only question is, are we going to a 2-year college in some type of a technical field, or are we going to a 4-year college looking for a baccalaureate degree? One of the problems I think we're all aware of, and probably guilty of as parents, is that we have taught our children that somehow it's a little bit less than honorable to get your hands dirty making a living. Everybody needs to wear a 3-piece suit and a white shirt and tie to work in a nice air-conditioned office, or it's just not American. And all of us in this room know that's absolutely wrong. Most of us have made a mighty fine living for a long, long time in an atmosphere where sometimes your foot slips in the grease and maybe your fingernails get a little bit dirty. I often wonder how many white collar and tie people are sitting there staring into a computer screen for $25,000 a year that would be a heck of a lot happier if they were out there in one of our shops getting their fingernails dirty, but doing something they enjoyed and making $50,000 a year. We have not done a good job of getting that message out. America has taught their children you don't work for a living, you go sit in a nice cool office somewhere and you have a position. And we've got to change that. The Tech Prep program basically does that. It makes them consider, where am I headed? Am I probably going to go to 4 years of college? A lot of that depends on finances. Some of it depends, of course, on motivation. But if I'm not going to go to some 4-year college and get a baccalaureate degree in some area, and then go pursue a career with that degree, then I am going to go into some kind of a preparation for a 2-year degree in some type of an applied science, some type of technology. Now, as we said, in this one particular county in Maryland, the results were so spectacular, particularly with a high dropout rate, a high crime rate, a lot of unemployed young people and things of that sort, that it is now the law of that state. Tech prep is mandatory. Tennessee begins it in 1 year. Many other states around the land are trying to figure out how to implement it. And you're going to continue to hear more and more about tech prep because it is a continuous process from elementary all the way through high school and into the college level on a campus like the one you're on this morning. A linkage, a connection of education with an industry to make certain that the education gets the job done that we need and that you can find the qualified talent that you need. Now, when I heard about this, I was dumbfounded because haven't we been doing this for almost 10 years with T10? Isn't that what we set out to do in the first place? But T10 and the Tech Prep program have very similar end objectives in sight. And that is to give these youngsters something to work for and a reason to learn. Once they're motivated, get out of the way. That's what they're learning. So if you hear about Tech Prep in your community, pay attention. It might be exactly the thing that you and I need. It really bothers me that we are developing a tremendous number of 4-year college graduates who can never live up to their potential, who never find a job that requires that education. That we could have given them a 2-year college education that would have given them a tremendous opportunity to make a living. And probably in many instances make more money than they are already. So that's what Tech Prep basically is all about. And I'm not going to try to get more specific about it because I'm not qualified to. On the other hand, in this room, I'm sure are several people who certainly can tell you a lot more about it than I can. Mr. Doty, I'm sure, is one. The concept of researching a local automotive program in a high school auto shop is something that some of you have already done, and most of you need to think about. And the ability to find and build such a program is certainly something that I think will be of vital interest to us if we continue to expect this T10 program to generate good people. The concept of grow your own has been around for a long time in Toyota. We've talked about it a lot. We now have the means to do it, and if you're not doing it, then possibly that has something to do with the difficulty that you may experience in trying to find good people. One of the participants in the other meeting last week in San Antonio, during the course of the day, mentioned to the room that his store had spent $8,000 in the last year advertising all across the land in various classified newspapers for qualified Toyota technicians without receiving one qualified response. That's kind of sad. Now, if you're still hiring off the street corner and trying to raise them up that way, you know what an expensive proposition that is. If you're still stealing your technicians from some competitor down the street, you know sometimes they're not near as good as what you thought they were going to be before you got them. And we look at the cost of training today, and quite often your students or your technicians, when they come to our classes, want to know, how much does this cost my dealer? And I always heard you say, well, Toyota technical training doesn't cost your dealer anything, and of course that isn't really true. We don't charge you for the services of my staff. That is true. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't cost anything any more than it means there isn't any value involved. We tried a few years ago at Gulf States to just estimate roughly what we thought it did cost the dealership, a typical store, to send a student to a 2-day course. And it's a very difficult thing to calculate because there are so many hidden costs. It's easy to calculate the price of the Holiday Inn for a couple of nights and the plane fare or the automobile down to Houston and back, 3 meals a day or whatever. Those are fixed things that aren't hard to get receipts for. But as I remind your technicians when they're in my class, the lights are probably still lit above your stall back in the dealership. And the laundryman still drops off your clean uniforms even though you're not there to need them. And the guy with the red rags still drops off your bundle of new shop towels, and your store still gets billed for them even though you're probably not there this week. All of the overheads, all of the cost of doing business for that stall that you normally would occupy are continuing, but you're not there. You're not making any money for either your dealer or yourself while you're here in school. Worse than that, your dealer probably has negotiated some amount of money for you to take up for the flat rate that you're not earning right now. And the only reason that they would be even interested in doing that is the assumption that you'll come home smarter, be able to fix more cars faster, and all of this investment will be regained. And I certainly hope that you are doing exactly that. You bet your life there's a cost in training. Just how much is this cost? Well, a few years ago, we just tried to average it out for our wide-flung dealer network. And back then, we guessed that it probably ran as high as $500 a day. I'm quite sure it's more than that now. Most of our training courses are either 2 days in length or 3. And I know how much you hate to leave these guys, loose long enough to come to school because of the cost and because of the problems with customers that want their car fixed, but you don't have enough staff to do it. The smaller the store, the bigger it hurts. So we try very diligently to just absolutely force feed your technicians. We cram into their heads stuff in 2 days that no college student could learn like that. And they come home brain dead. Think about the comments you heard after your master tech came back from that scan tool course. And many of them had never held a scan tool in their hand. If they had a GM background, then with the Tech 1, they probably picked it up pretty easily. But in many instances, if you're a straight Toyota store, they'd never even seen a scanner before. And we had to start out by telling them what is one and what does it do. It was some of the most intensive training we've ever tried to do, and many of your technicians just simply weren't up to learning at that speed. One thing that we cannot legislate is the speed at which people learn. It takes a different length of time for each of us. Some are faster than others. But we're all going to have the time and the ability to learn all of these things if we're going to fix this high technology. One of the things that we then sat down and tried to calculate was by the time that you spend your dealer's money and the technician's time to send them to all of the 8 basic required fundamental training courses that Toyota offers through my tech center, what is the total investment to the dealer? Roughly $8,000, the best we can figure. And this is spread out over a 2 or 3 year period of time during which there are large gaps in this technician's education if they have not had a prior program, either from a campus like this or a mighty fine high school auto shop, or possibly the benefit of training from some other manufacturer that you've hired them away from. Most of the technicians that you have out there have big gaps somewhere in their education about automotive. And that may explain why certain of the ASE certification tests are very difficult for them to pass. That identifies where those gaps are, doesn't it? So the concept of being able to send a young person, and we all know the older you get, the harder it is to learn, so the younger the better probably. The concept of sending a younger person to a school like this, where a course that I must cover in 2 or 3 days takes as long as 8 weeks or more with lots of hands-on and lab time that I can't afford when your technicians are in my classes, means that the same exact training that I would do for your present technicians can be done a lot better on this campus, and probably for less money. So as a consequence, which is the best way to spend that $8,000? Pay me now or pay me later? A little bit at a time? Or send a bright person that you already know has the talent off to this campus where they can do a much better job in greater depth of that education on those 8 basic Toyota courses. And then, of course, when they do come out of a program like this at the end of 2 years, not only do they have the Toyota technology with the general education that they've received, they're a very broad-based person as well. And as you saw in the video, probably very adaptable to other needs in the dealership as well. Parts, service writers, warranty clerks, ASMs, hey, someday us. A student on this campus asked me a question several years ago, probably delighted me more than anything anybody's ever asked me. And I was invited by Jerry and Fred to talk to one of the freshman classes here. And the idea was to motivate a couple of them into deciding for the T10 program. And one of them looked me right in the eye and said, "How do I get your job?" Attaboy. If you think it's hard finding somebody to turn wrenches, try finding somebody that knows how to teach automotive. That's what's hard. So as a consequence, our industry has a vast need for good people. And as we cultivate these programs in our own communities, these people come from your town. We send them to this campus and polish their knowledge and their education and make good people out of them and bring them back into your community to become good tax-paying citizens as well as the employees of your store. And everyone in your community will profit from this. So that's what we basically are getting at when we talk about feeder schools and target recruitment. Not to let this campus find these people, search them out, and provide them for you. We've kind of done that in the past probably. But find the people in your own community that will come back to your town at the end of their education and stay there because that's where family is. That's where their ties are. We've seen a lot of instances where we've co-opted a student out of this campus into one of your stores, but they didn't come from your community. And they may have come out there and done their co-op, but at the end of their college education, they disappeared and you never saw them again. They went back wherever they came from, or wherever mom and dad are, or wherever the girlfriend lives. And even though you had a tremendous, talented person there, you didn't get the advantage of the results of that education. They went somewhere else. It seems logical that if you send your own hometown people away to school, that they will come back to where their beginnings are. They will come back to you, and that they will be much happier citizens of your own local community. And of course, that's what this next phase of T10 is going to try to do. Target recruitment is looking for the gold in your own backyard. Now, in the San Antonio program a week ago, we had the opportunity to call a couple of gentlemen that we knew and invite them to be there as guest speakers and give some insight as to how some of this might work. And not only did they show up, but they did an absolutely outstanding job. And we captured it all on television. And we're not going to sit here and watch TV all day. But after we've had time to take a break and get a cup of coffee, I'd like you to meet one of these secondary high school auto shop instructors. He's one of the most incredible people I've ever met. I can't think of a crustier, more hard-nosed group of people than all us old automotive service managers that have stood out in that driveway for years and been threatened with everything imaginable by angry customers who are frustrated because their car broke. And yet this gentleman that you're going to meet in a few minutes put tears in the eyes of almost everybody in this room as he told his story. I think you're going to find it quite interesting, and we'll share that with you. Why don't we take about a 15-minute break and we'll continue.